Good evening to you all, or wherever it may be when you're watching this. I'm George, mostly known as the Fragrance Apprentice, and tonight I'm coming to you with my very first YouTube review, which is pretty exciting and pretty terrifying at the same time. This week, the first week, I'm going to be proudly reviewing Dior Homme. Before we even get started, I know what you're going to say, George. We know this one. We've got this one pretty covered, actually. It's the one with the iris, right? It's the powdery iris one. All right, this one is Mr. Iriston from Irisville on Irisland. All right, it's got so much iris they should have called it Green Iris Tweed. I'm really going to be teaching you anything new, unless you are somebody who's literally like browsing YouTube who wants a genuine sort of Dior Homme review, and of course I will try to deliver that as well. But it's to kind of give my own take on it and try to answer some frequently asked questions about it, such as the powderiness, the makeup bag, things like that. I've really tried to research into it and kind of what's causing those kinds of smells. And not just that, but the one of the big things is that with the whole Dior Homme line, which I do actually have now, I'm going to say I was converted myself. I could not stand this when I first smelt it 2 years ago. When I first smelt this 2 years ago, again with everybody else, I just thought, it's a makeup bag, it's lipstick. In fact, here was my mini review 2 years ago of the Dior Homme line. Lipstick. Lipstick with lemon. Lipstick with chocolate. Lipstick with water? So back in the day, this was not really a thing that I would go towards. However, since then I can happily say that my palette and my experience with fragrances has developed my nose, and I really don't actually interpret them as that. In fact, I think I have an answer specifically of why people do get that. And the one thing that I'm going to say very openly about this, before we get any further with this, I'm not very savvy with the warning signs of reformulation or even batch codes or things like that, so I am uncertain whether this is a reformulated version or an original vintage version. I am uncertain of that. From what I've been told, that's not really too much of a scary thing. Apparently the smells aren't completely distant, if at all. The main thing that changes is the projection and longevity, in which I would actually kind of say that I'm thinking that this is possibly vintage, because this is very powerful. This can be quite a powerful fragrance on me, so I'd be inclined to think that it's in that way. Either way, again, people have said that it's not too much of a scary thing with regards to the smell, so I'm just gonna continue forward with that. So with that, let's take on the formals or the formalities of Christian Dior's Homme. The general background information for the newbies, and for the advanced guys, this is a bit of a revision. Christian Dior's Homme was released back in 2005 under, of course, the Christian Dior house. Its perfumier is Olivier Polge, who has done a lot of work with the Christian Dior house. However, in 2011 it was then reformulated by Mr. Francis Demarche, with, as I said before, the smell resembling the exact same composition of the original Dior Homme, but the performance, such as projection and longevity, was changed. The main concept of this fragrance is that of the sophistication and the modernisation of the Christian Dior house to the modern world. Of course, they wanted to create a brand new men's line, as every fragrance house has done, and they just really wanted to embody the classiness, the classicness, and the sophistication that Dior want to bring into the 21st century. So when it comes to presentation, presentation is a big deal for me. I think that I stated on the starting lineup that I'm pretty vain with my collection. You know, I want it to be, you know, a very beautiful collection to not only smell, but to look at. And you know, when people come over, like, wow, that bottle kind of looks cool. with Dior Homme, I mean, this is one of the most classic and iconic looking bottles in the community and in the business. The thing that I just love about this fragrance bottle is that there are no gimmicks, there are no over-the-top insane crazy designs, or there's no kind of design that's trying to meet the current time period or anything like that, which can work. That all can work with certain fragrance companies and certain fragrances, but with this, it's just classic empirical style, you know. And the thing that I like about it is that it's a running theme from the look of the bottle to the smell in the bottle. The designs of both are very congruent to each other. The overall style is, as I said, that kind of classic French couture ship, and you know, highlighting fashion and style and you know, all that good stuff, right? So that is not only in the fragrance but within the actual bottle itself. It's a fantastic bottle. The only thing that actually does irk me just a bit is the box, because, and I know you think like, well, it's just a box, man, and I agree, you aren't buying the fragrance for the box, but it's just like you've put so much craftsmanship into such a beautiful bottle, then you got a flimsy cardboard box. But as I said, you're not buying it for the box, and that's all cool. So with the presentation out of the way, let's just tackle the smell. Now, people use three nouns usually to describe this fragrance. That is creamy, classy, powdery, and a fourth, which is makeup bag. No, and what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to sort of try and explain what I think is causing those kind of descriptive words using the actual note breakdown. So classy and creamy and all that kind of stuff is correct, but just in general you just want to know, right, so what does this smell like completely, you know, objectively, what does this smell like if you've never smelled it before or you're looking to buy it. So what I like to do is I've got already Dior Homme on, and I've got it, I'm just about to spray it here. So Dior Homme comes in 4 acts. The open, the second act, the third act, and of course the ultimate dry down, which is the 4th and final act. So as soon as it hits, the first act comes straight in, and to just give you a general idea of what this smells like, you just need to know 3 things, and that is citrus, lavender, and vague amber. Okay, so those are the 3 main smells. That composites into a chalky smell. Now at this point, if you are a person who's very used to or smells a lot of sweet fragrances or overly abundantly citrus fragrances, I think the olfactory system is going to really just interpret that whole smell as crayons or makeup bags. I shit you not. And what that is that the sort of the amber with the lavender starts to converge with iris. Now iris is not actually too much of an impact. I've smelled iris on its own and it's actually quite a light floral. Iris on its own does not smell like makeup. It's the sort of the combination of the lavender and the iris and this kind of light bergamot kind of smell. I think that there's something else that's kind of pushing that, and that could either be the amber or the vetiver. But mainly, the main kind of thing that objectively kind of comes at you is, like I said, it's a bit of citrus, it's lavender, and vague amber. Iris is in the background, of course, but it is not the main focal point yet. So Act 1 lasts about 10 minutes. It's a very short act. It's a kind of a very sort of fresh, almost aromatic, should I say, aromatic, fresh blast of the citrus, the lavender, and this kind of vague amber with iris undertones, kind of a smell. But the second act is 10 minutes later. Now, we've had the iris on a kind of a low level, but then it really kind of punches itself up. And that's what I think that the powderiness is. The iris really starts to take hold of it, and we have like the amber starts to get sleeker, and then we also start to get a bit of the cocoa coming up. So this is the powdery stage. Act 2 for me is the powdery stage. So we've had the first act and the second act. Now we're about, for me, an hour and a half to 2 hours in, and this is what I like to call the creamy stage. Now at this point the iris and the amber really start to coalesce together, and they start to do a bit of a dance. The cocoa starts to smell quite sort of sieved, like a sieved kind of cocoa powder, but the amber and the iris is creating this creamy texture. So it's gone from the powdery texture, which was kind of the iris and the lavender kind of mixing together, and now the iris and the amber are really taking center stage with the cocoa, and that's producing, with the chocolate, the creamy stage. Now this is the longest stage for me personally. That's going to last you up until the 5th or the 6th hour, and then we get to the final act, which is here, and I would call this the herbal act. And that is where the vetiver really starts to kind of take on a life of its own. The lavender's kind of gone, it's been replaced by the cocoa. The iris is still there, and the amber's pretty much gone, but what's left is the vetiver, and to a degree a bit of the leather is coming in. I didn't really get much of the leather except for the final part, so it's like a cocoa leather vetiver kind of thing, but it's not animalic, it's not even really gourmandish, it's actually quite herbal to my nose. So that's the 4 different stages of, or the 4 different acts to me of Dior Homme. Which is kind of the classy stage, which is the kind of the chalk texture which can put people off. That's the citrus, the lavender, the iris, and the amber. The iris is only just a small amount. Then you get to the second act, which is the powderiness stage. Then you get to the third act, which is the creamy stage, and then the fourth, which I call the herbal stage. And then of course it's gone. So it's quite a beautiful journey. It's quite an incredible journey. That is the overall smell of it for those of you who have not smelt it. Of course that is simply to my nose. Other people I'm sure will have picked different things up at different times. But you know, I've really tried to research what's in the notes in here, and you know, over time I've spent, not just with personal experience but testing specifically for this review, you know, what I think it smells like from top to the bottom. So what we're going to get out of performance with Christian Dior's Homme, again, it is just fantastic, like the design of the bottle and the smell itself. It's really good. It's not like crazy or outstanding. With a fragrance like this, you wouldn't want it to be over the top, and at the same time you wouldn't really want it to be a skin scent. It's a fragrance that is quite evidently noticeable. It's a fragrance that does last a very good amount of time, but it doesn't have the kind of personality or the kind of vibe that would demand it to, you know, go to beast mode, as it were, in the fragrance community. You see, with Dior Homme, it's not a screaming teenager that craves your attention. It's a full-grown adult that grabs your attention. You know, it doesn't need to have a bulky or bloated kind of performance or sillage. It's something that is literally just there for, you know, the onlooker or the, you know, the person that you're with to simply enjoy and appreciate. So for that, you know, you get a lot of good marks for that. Projection or sillage is very good. It's quite static. It doesn't kind of like fill a room. It's quite static to your kind of space. It does produce, in a literal sense, kind of like a scent bubble. People around you can come into your bubble and smell you, and then, you know, carefully walk away and not sort of be entrenched by the fragrance, you know, following them or leaping after them. Longevity for me was 6 to 8 hours. Please remember that longevity is quite a peculiar thing. Usually a lot of people can have variables with it, but for me and my kind of skin tone, I say 6 to 8 hours was very good. and that was in the colder weather. So you know, you can't really complain with that. And 6 to 8 hours, that's a good half of a day. So there's no need to worry or complain or get bothered about that. So that was just my general interpretation of what Dior Homme smells like. If you're just a person who just wants to know what it smells like and just get a general idea of it without actually testing it, that's that part, and I will not be offended if you switch off now, because now I'm just going to be going into more my hobbyist mentality of this fragrance and really share with you my sort of overall thoughts of this fragrance. As you could probably tell, I really like this. And one of the reasons I really like this is I look at the note breakdown, and let me be clear with you, I am not a note breakdown kind of person. I'm not really a note kind of person. I'll try and describe a fragrance to the best of my ability, but I just find that whole kind of thing not completely up my street. But you look at the Dior Homme note breakdown and you just have to look in awe, because what you really have to understand is that these are extremely masculine notes, but in a very feminine order. And what that kind of whole thing produced is a bit of God, I know this sounds like quite insane, but a bit of a philosophical fragrance question, right? Bear with me on this. And that is, what really makes, or what really is, a masculine fragrance? You see, before this you had kind of little attempts at sort of floral based masculine fragrances. A couple that come to mind are even as common as CK1, which is kind of a floral based fragrance, but Loe de Se, which I actually have in the background. There was another that the Fragrance Brothers really kind of came up with, but it really did start to create a dilemma and a question, which is, okay, so does a masculine fragrance always have to smell masculine? What I mean by masculine is, I don't know, heavily over the top with leather or oud or woods or ginger or spices, or kind of, even certain masculine fragrances can be heavily fruity, but not like light fruity. I mean like heavily, like blackberries and dark fruits and like Aventus and, you know, things like that kind of stuff. But then Dior Homme came and Olivier Polge came in and kind of questioned that to quite a degree, which is quite surprising, because of course before that Christian Dior were all for that kind of thing. They were like, well, take Fahrenheit, you know, take Eau Sauvage, you know, very, very kind of stereotypically masculine fragrances. And then, of course, Olivier Polge created this. And this is very challenging. And, of course, you are going to get quite a bit of a diverse kind of reception. You're going to get people who just smell this and go, that's a bit too over the feminine border for me. And fair enough. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And for some people this will be too feminine. I mean, for Christ's sake, some people say it smells like a makeup bag. I mean, a lot of people just don't kind of want that. I don't think it, I think that that's kind of overstated, and I think that, as I said, I think that that's only one minor part of the Dior Homme kind of composition or journey. I think that that's only one small part of it. I think that you've really got to kind of get used to what it's trying to do. But it is, because of the floral kind of high notes, especially with the abundance of iris in certain parts of it, that can really turn people off. And it did, but it does kind of create that idea or that concept of, do men always have to go around smelling like beefcakes or over the top? And this really kind of resonated with me, and I really kind of appreciated that. For my kind of overall rating of it, I'd definitely say 9 out of 10. I'm not giving it the extra mark because of the box. It's simply because it is fantastic, but it's not like, oh my god. It's not, to me personally, a 10 out of 10. It's quite hard for me, it's quite hard when it comes to me to get an actual 10 out of 10. But 9 out of 10, this thing is no slouch. It's beautiful, it's fantastic, It's interesting if you just kind of want it for just a general kind of really good smell and fantastic, but also conceptually it's quite a challenging fragrance, and for hobbyists and people who love the art of this, it's a real treat as well. But if you're just like some guy who's just like, well, I just want a good smell, yeah, I'd go for it if you can take the idea of it does have that kind of floral element, it does kind of have that sensitive element, it does have that quote-unquote feminine element, but it can work with somebody who wants to also portray not only their masculine side, but show that they have a sensitive side and a caring side and a classical side. If you enjoyed this, of course, subscribe, comment, share, do all the cool internet things, and I really appreciate the love and support that I've been given so far, and see you next time. Until then, Fragrance Apprentice, out.